We're shedding our masks and breaking down walls. Hell, we may even drop our drawers. That's right. We're going commando with Angela and Dana. Hi, I'm Dana Sardano, and this is Angela DeMarco, and we are going commando. Angela and I like to take advantage of the fact that we have no ability to control anything that comes out of our mouths and put it on air for your entertainment. We get together, we just talk about things that we think matter, but we take off the masks and we drop the walls and we talk about what we really think. And we hope you appreciate that. Angela, as I stumble on my words, do you have anything interesting to say?
No, I have nothing interesting to say. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Happy Monday. Happy Mother's Day to all who celebrated yesterday. Dana and I were just talking about how every day is Mother's Day for us. So it's just another day. But it's really a good excuse to force the family to let me sleep in late. You know what I mean? Like, right. It's the only day it could happen. And they got till 9:00 and then they're knocking on the door. But I couldn't be mad because they were bringing me breakfast in bed. I have trained them well.
Very nice. Very nice. I had a situation where I came to the gallery with the girls and we did a little painting, creative stuff. And Nala, she always comes in, she makes popcorn, and then God forbid her sister goes in and takes a handful. You know, it's a bloodbath. I mean, God forbid, right? You know, and vice versa. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so Yaya went in. Earlier I made a joke to Nala about something. I'm like, it's Mother's Day because she was whatever, not behaving. And she's like, that's why I'm getting along with my sister.
Oh, okay.
So she made a conscious effort on Mother's Day. So now we're in the gallery and Yaya goes to grab the popcorn and I'm watching. I'm on the other side of the room and I'm like, and I see Nala go to grab it. And I'm like, oh, Nala, because it's Mother's Day, it's so nice of you to share with your sister. Oh yeah. Mother's Day is an opportunity for me to be. So Yaya grabs the popcorn and I'm like, oh my God, Yaya, it's Mother's Day. Help yourself. You know what I mean? Oh, totally. But the thing that triggered that I realized was they can get along. They proved that they can get along. So now I know that. Now I know that it's not beyond their reach. It's not the impossible. So I'll be utilizing that today in my interactions with them.
Just be like, girls, every day is Mother's Day. You didn't know?
You didn't know? Check your calendars.
Train going by. All right. So Monday mornings, Dana and I like to catch up. We like to, because we spend time with our families over the weekend and we're business co-collaborators and we always have to work together. And Monday's our catch-up day. So we recorded for you guys.
Yep. So here we are.
Subscribe. Bye now.
No. If you saw the last video, the stupidogeny that comes out of our mouths. But we do to stimulate conversation is I have a deck of cards that I created with our dear friend Anne-Marie Scorti. I created them with my artwork and her inspiring, empowering, amazing channeled messages of love, light, and wonderfulness. So I picked a card. Angela never knows what the card is, and we go from there. Today I picked this one. I love this painting. Oh,
I was going to say, before we get into, they're called Soul Traveler cards of personal empowerment, correct?
For personal empowerment.
It's, it's between the books and the empowerment.
I know.
It's confusing. But they're called Soul Traveler cards for personal empowerment. They're gorgeous deck of cards filled with Dana's artwork. And on the back are these channeled messages. And channeled messages are not just something that's pulled from a book. It's not something that's like, this like just a human being writing. That like they're really like divinely inspired, if you would say, like what's like the layman's term of saying it, they're wisdom beyond us, and they're like an extended version of a fortune cookie that makes sense. Like you can't add in bed at the end, or we can try. But can we? Maybe.
Go ahead.
So the cards are awesome because they're a great tool for anybody who like you just would pick a card based on like the picture, or you just pick a card randomly, and then it gives you some kind of like message to contemplate during the day. as you're like sitting there, and just puts you in a really, really great state of mind. So that's why we kind of chose this as a vehicle, so that we can have some kind of like something to riff off of, but also for whatever message that we might need for the week.
Exactly. And when I'm out in public, like when I'm like doing like events and
When I'm
stuff.
wearing pants.
Yeah, exactly. When I'm out doing events and I'll pull cards for people, and it's true. It's a conversation piece, and then we go from there. Just to clarify, it is of empowerment. This is something that I collaborated in creating because my book is for empowerment, and I always screw them up. So you were right the first time. My apologies.
Wow, thank you.
I get to be right. Okay. So this card, I love this painting so much. This is part of my mother-child series. This is called Ethereal Mother. And even though it bears no resemblance to me, this is obviously in my head, me and my two girls. So it's a beauty. Okay.
So beautiful.
So the card is called Forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key to alignment in bed. No, I'm just kidding.
Kind of, actually.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. This is really, really a beautiful message. Okay. Forgiveness is the key to alignment. This is very difficult for many to do, and comprehension may be even more difficult. For it is not for you to forgive others for their sake, but for your own, because you deserve to be free of the constraints of these attachments hold over you. When you forgive, you allow yourself to heal the emotional wounds that scar your soul. You are healing your essence, so you may transform into one who is ever closer to loving who you are. It is self-love emerging into complete self-acceptance, and that is freedom.
I was waiting for it. Oh, that is such a beautiful, beautiful message. It really is. I mean, it's so relevant for, the obvious, right? For your relationships with your family, your partner, your kids, whatever it might be. But even down to like, even like stuff that happened last week, like with New Chip. That like you can hold these grudges, and you can hold these like victim modes, or these being angry that something didn't turn out the way you wanted it, or someone didn't act the way you wanted them to act. Like you can hold on to that because that's like the more comfortable place to be. But if you can just like look at the situation and say, okay, here's what I got out of that. Here's the positive that I got out of that. Let me see if I can rectify it with this person, place, or thing, or walk away, right? Because isn't that forgiveness, is being able to make that decision also?
Yeah. And there's so many different directions, like as you're talking, that we could take this. But truly, the ability to forgive comes from the ability to not have to be right. When, I for many, many years have always in the back of my head, like when I'm like ready to like flip a table, throw somebody through a window, I have to stop and say, is it better, especially specifically my husband, that's who I spend my most time with, but is it better to be right or to be happy?
Yeah.
And I always stop myself. It's better to be right or to be happy. Now at 20, I would say right. At 30, I would say right. At 40, I might even say right. At 50, I'd rather be happy.
Yeah.
And when you realize that, and you realize the forgiveness is it's not for them. It's for you. It's for you to give you peace. A lot of people think when they forgive, they're excusing somebody else's behavior, and they're not. They're not. What they're doing is they're giving themselves permission to be at peace. And what I find, I guess, in my own, personal growth journey is the more experiences I have that I allow myself to be open to the lesson, and then I overcome whatever the obstacle is and learn the lesson, the more I am able to forgive myself for not knowing better before. And then as a result, being able to forgive others, because then I recognize that they didn't know better either. Nobody is looking to hurt me. People are just operating in the place where they reside in an awareness level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so by me, first and foremost, forgiving myself for not knowing better, recognizing that they didn't know better, being able to forgive them, then I have peace. Forgiveness is truly divine. I mean, no bullshit.
Yeah, no, that's really, that's so important what you just said, because I think me not being able to forgive myself was my biggest barrier to growing personally. Like being able to like I had so much angst about, you know, raising my children the wrong way. I had so much angst about, you know, the things that I had done, especially like when I got into AA. That was the hardest part, was to forgive myself for the life that I was leading before I got into those rooms, because it wasn't pretty, you know, and um, that pain of looking at myself and experiencing it. It wasn't even about knowing better, because obviously I knew better not to do the things that I was doing, but I did them anyway. And and that was the biggest hurdle. Once I could forgive myself, and then I could say, okay, well, I'm going to, from today move forward, do better, right? As long as, and it's like also hand in hand with having the awareness, right? So there's the forgiveness of, you know, I of myself, that I lived a certain way and I feel terrible about that whole thing. But this day moving forward, now that I'm aware that I don't want to feel that way anymore and I don't want to be that person anymore, then I can move forward. And then as I'm trying to become a better person, the empathy comes in for other people.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. And you know what? I just want to comment on something that you said. You didn't know better. You said you did, and you did it anyway. You didn't know better because you knew that it was not good what you were doing,
Yeah.
but you didn't know your own worthiness. If you had truly understood your own worth, your own value, you would not have done that. So you didn't know better. People think it's like, oh, you know, I did some, like I smoked for years. I knew it was bad for me. It said it on the friggin' box. You know what I mean? The commercials, you know, the little skull and crossbones, it, you know, it tipped me off, you know, but I smoked anyway because I truly did not understand that if I really valued myself, my health, my wellness, my happiness, I would not be putting that substance into my body.
Right.
And that goes with all of the other things, all the relationships and this. So it really is about knowing better, knowing your own worth, knowing your own value, forgiving yourself for the missteps that were really, truly just a reflection of you not knowing your own worth.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
And what people, I think, people, all of us, to one degree or another, when we are resistant to forgive, we carry the burden of that thing that we're not forgiving throughout our lives. And I have to share this story. I'm asking, can I share a story?
I mean,
What if
yeah,
I ever ask permission to share a story? I have something to say.
I love story time with Dana. Proceed.
You know, and you're aware of this, Angela. You know, I was estranged from my father since I was 14 years old. And obviously had daddy issues, mommy issues, all sorts of issues all over my life, and perpetuated patterns, based on these issues. I was officially, we tried to reconcile somewhere around 18, but from 18 to like 41, I was full on estranged from my father. Nothing, like not a Christmas card, nothing. Like he did not exist to me. I always knew if I got word that he passed, what would I do? Would I send a flower? Would I show up? Like but I always knew that that was the end of the relationship. I would die never having had a relationship with my father. And my patterns in my life, you know, they reflected that estrangement. When I was in my 30s, my entire 30s, I could not have a healthy, this is all in 10 Rex, by the way, but I could not have a healthy relationship with a man. And I always was like, I didn't understand it was me. I didn't understand it was my perception of myself and the patterns I was perpetuating. And I was like, oh, why does this one want to be abusive? And why does this one want to be neglectful? And why does this one want to, and all I want to do is be, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Wound up having 2 children in my late 30s. Their birth father is no longer a part of our lives, but I wound up having children. And so now I have like a 1 and a 2-year-old and I'm still single, but now I'm different because now I understand unconditional love and I'm dating, but I'm meeting a different quality of guy because I'm changing. Okay. In February 2012, my father showed up out of the blue and, Remember, I'm like 41 years old. No sign of a decent relationship. My father showed up out of the blue, dropped a letter off at school. I don't want to get too far into the details, and was basically like, I'm in town. This is your father. I'll be here for 2 weeks. I would love to see you. P.S. Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you over the last X amount of years. And my initial reaction was a 14-year-old Dana, like, holy shit, my father's here. Oh my God. And then I let that go. And then I realized I'm a grown woman with 2 children. And why would I not forgive this man? What? Like, he's probably in his mid-70s. He's showing up to reconcile in his golden years. You know what I mean? There's no reason. There's no reason other than me holding a grudge, other than me choosing to hold this grudge. So long story short, meet up with him, invite him to my home. I set a boundary. I don't even realize I'm doing that. I set a boundary. I make a promise to myself. I'm not going to rehash anything. I'm only going to discuss the present time from my children on, what my life looks like, my job or whatever. Wonderful time. I only thought it was going to be like this one meeting, which turned into a beautiful, he passed a few years ago, but which turned into a beautiful rekindling, reconciliation over the 7 years prior to him passing. And so that was February 2012. October 2012, Rob and I got together. We've been together ever since. And he truly is one of the greatest men I have ever met. He's a royal pain in the ass. Do not misunderstand. But he is everything as a little girl I wrote down on a piece of paper that I wanted to be with. And I truly, truly believe my finally releasing myself of that burden that I didn't even know I was carrying allowed him to walk through the door. And it's probably one of the most accidental strokes of genius that I've ever done, because I just did it because it felt right. And at the end of the day, that forgiveness created the life I live in right now. It's beautiful.
Oh my God. Even though I know the story, I love hearing the story.
Oh my God. It's just such an amazing thing, because people could say it's a coincidence. I'm like, okay.
It's definitely not a coincidence.
Yeah. I allowed myself to heal that portion of my heart that was blocking me from what I wanted in a significant other.
And now imagine, so this is where I think people have a lot of trouble. Imagine at that time you had someone, or you were listening to someone online, and they were like, oh, if you forgive your father, you would immediately have jumped to, I'm not going to forgive my father. I'm going to stay in that anger. Like if you were getting that advice or whatever it might be, if there was an outside influence and you weren't listening to what was inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want it, yeah, exactly. And and again, I don't want to get into all of it because there's so many components of it. But when I did forgive him, it truly was, I refer to it as squirrel feeding. I'm like, all right, I'll have lunch with you. And he lived far away from me, and he only came into my area for a few months, but like once a year. So it was safe. Yeah. So a natural relationship began to build. If it was forgive your father and have this relationship, and if I put all these rules around it, but it just happened so naturally. And my mother, who she and I had a tenuous relationship at best, but she was so threatened by this relationship that she was putting this stuff in my ear.
Yeah.
She was doing it subtly. Remember that time when we were in Disney World and you almost left me and things from 1974. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I at this point was so confident in myself and my discernment, my ability to make judgments for myself, that I understood where she was coming from. And I was able to kind of tune that out and just do what felt right. And like I said, it turned into such a beautiful relationship. Oh my God. My father came to my wedding. I got married a year late. No, I got married 2 years later. 2012, got married in 2014. My father came to my wedding. I danced with my father at my wedding. Oh my God, here it comes.
Well, because it's like almost 30 years, right? Like 25 years of not having him thinking
25 years
part of your life. And there he is at your wedding to Rob, which is like, I can just imagine. I
can't. You don't understand. Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Commando. That's right. It was beautiful. It was. If you were there, you know. If you were there, if anybody who's watching this was there, just comment, because I know you saw what happened when we danced. Because again, I've got married over 40. Like, I didn't do all the bullshit, like all the rules. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're going to do the first dance with the father, the first hit. No. We were in the photo booth. I had a purple boa around my neck. We were acting the fools. And when we walked back to where everybody was, this is so stupid. Endless Love came on. I didn't realize it was Endless Love. It was a slow song.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, let's go dance. It wasn't like planned. And we went out to dance. And as we were dancing, I could start to see all of a sudden the lights dimmed because everybody understood the magnitude of that moment. And all of a sudden I saw like a cell phone go up and a cell phone go up. And then I see Rob standing next to his father going, look, and everybody was a part of that moment and understood how special and how magnificent it was. It was really, really something. He even knew it, but we were in our own world. There was a spotlight on us. Like all of a sudden, everybody was like, holy shit, Dana's dancing with her father at her wedding, you know? And this happened. And then afterwards, he put his hand in my waist, like karate chop, and like leaned me over. He's like, take a bow, because he understood that everybody was watching. And what's really funny is now every time Endless Love comes on the radio, I was like, oh, that's mine and my father's song. Which the ridiculousness of it makes it even more beautiful. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to monopolize this time with this.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Forgiveness, man. Forgiveness is fucking divine.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, the thing is, it's really important. The reason why you were able to get there was because you had overcome your own challenges, right?
Yeah.
So if someone's facing something in their life right now, you know, if you're facing a difficulty, think about what area of your life is not quite right. You know what I mean? Think about what's discontent, not just don't put it on the relationship or the thing or the whatever. If you're freaking out about a situation or you're really uncomfortable, you're angry and you're mad about a situation, step back and say, what's not right in my life? Because I'm deflecting that onto this situation. Because the situation could be, you can take a situation and look at it any particular way. You know, like you can say, okay, here's something bad that happened. I'm going to be the victim. Here's something bad that happened. I'm going to take what I got out of it. I'm going to walk away. Here's something that happened. I'm going to fight the man. Like, you know what I mean? Anything. And your reaction to the situation is based on something that's either right or not right in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, Dana, what's a good way for people to kind of like do that gut check?
I'm just laughing because I could get into the whole, the emotional guidance system. essentially, we know, we always know when something's not right for us. We choose to ignore it. We choose to distract ourselves, self-soothe, all of those things. But when something doesn't feel right, and you see my hand, like here, but when something doesn't feel right, rather than blow past it, because what we tend to do is we tend to blame everybody else. Right? Oh, but this one, no. If something doesn't feel right, why is that? Why? Just ask yourself the question. What do I want? Is this what I want? What can I do differently to get what I want? It's such a knee jerk. We learn coping mechanisms, as we're growing, from babies. Babies, you cry, you get fed, right? Toddler, you kick and scream, you get the toy. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you learn, But what happens is when we start to grow and develop and we use coping mechanisms of a 2-year-old that don't get addressed for more appropriate coping mechanisms, we carry that coping mechanism to 4 years old. And it develops to more age appropriate, but it's still imbalanced or dysfunctional. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, let me try to pick this up. When we are children, we are learning all the time how to get our needs met. That's all it is. I cry, I get a bottle, right? Mm-hmm. I kick and scream, I get attention.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I manipulate, I get everybody to think I'm cute. All we're doing is behaving in ways to get our needs met. Sometimes the way we behave to get our needs met is well and appropriate, and we get our needs met. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's imbalanced or dysfunctional, right? But we still get our needs met because the adults may not know any better. They don't know to correct the behavior. So what do we learn? We learn that, oh, if I flip a table, people listen to me. That's what I learned.
Yeah.
I learned the louder I was, people listened. They weren't always nice about it, but they listened, right?
Yeah.
So we go through our lives as we age with variations of this coping mechanism. And then we wonder why life is uncomfortable and crappy, right? Because we didn't know it. So now you got to forgive yourself for not knowing any better. You've got to forgive the people around you for not knowing anybody. Otherwise, they would have adjusted it. And again, it's all back to the forgiveness. But how do you change that? How do you alter that? Well, if you're doing something to get your need met and your need is not being met and you feel shitty, you just got to go back and go, well, what can I do differently? Like, I know I have ways of getting what I want. But sometimes when I try to utilize those ways to get what I want with my husband, I get the opposite effect because his language is different than mine. So I could be like, well, is it better to be right or to be happy? Well, if I just want to be right, I'll continue doing what I'm doing to prove him wrong and still not get my needs met and wonder why things are shitty, right?
Right.
Or I can pull back and say, okay, I want to be happy. What can I do differently? Ooh, I can appeal to his senses. You know what I mean? Or I can, you know what I mean? I know with my husband, I need to be vulnerable to get my needs met because I am not vulnerable by nature. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I want Rob to come around, I just soften. It feels like I'm going against who I am, but it's not. It doesn't hurt for me to be a softer version of myself. Nobody dies.
Yeah.
And then he get his needs met because he feels like he can, I don't want to say save me. That's a little extreme, but he can hear me now. Because I've met him at
his need is to care for you, to care for the girls. That's his need. And you're allowing him to fulfill that need in him. It makes him feel good to take care of you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So just to bring it home, my advice would be when whoever's watching this, when you are not getting your needs met, then you need to come up with a different way to get your needs met. And it doesn't mean that you are wrong. And it doesn't mean that you've lost. It means this key doesn't work. Toss it out. Let's try another one. Because the whole purpose is to get your needs met, to feel freedom, to feel good, all of those things. And it just requires looking at yourself a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then when you're able to do that, then you're able to more easily forgive yourself and forgive others because you are realizing the situation. You're seeing it from a different perspective, right? Perspective really probably is the be all end all. It's just looking at things with a different lens, because if it doesn't feel good, look at something with a different lens. And then you're able to see other people, and it's easier to forgive everybody. Easier to forgive situations when you are well, happy, and whole and adjusted.
Here you go. That's right, girl. All right.
There we go. So we'll mic drop this one.
Okay. Thank you for watching me cry. That was lovely.
I love watching you cry. It's
God. Oh my God. And if anybody really is picking up what we're putting down, we're not going to do like we did in our last video where it's like buy now. But not only does 10 Recommandments for Personal Empowerment have some of these stories that I shared, because that's really how I came to this place, is looking back on these stories and understanding what I learned from them, but it also gives tips and tools and how to take your story and make it to rewrite your story, make it the story that you want to tell and not the story that was told to you.
Yeah. And without being like preachy, like a lot of self-help books, I guess you can almost put this in that category. Self-help books are like, here, 5 ways to do this, do this, do this, do this. Yours is more like, here's what happened to me. The story when you and your dad, the Bruno story, that's a good one.
That was the breakup. I shared with you the get back together. The Bruno was the breakup.
That's a rough one. But then you take what you gleaned from it and you kind of say, like, this is how I did it. And here's how I did it. And you could try. You're never preachy. You're never like, it's great. So we'll put the link to buy the book in the comments. Dana teaches a workshop on it. If you're kind of like lost or feeling a little stuck, like you got the opportunity to work with Dana directly, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I just want to help everybody feel the way I feel and live the way I live and assist them in doing the work. It's not easy. It's a choice.
Not easy.
Choice to do the work.
Yeah. And the life you live today is absolutely gorgeous. I know.
I'm in that space.
I know. I see that. All right, we'll end it there. Okay, bye, everybody. Have a good week. This episode is brought to you by Uniquely Phenom Collaboration. To learn about our tools and resources designed for creators by creators, go to uniquelyphenom.com.